All right. Are you ready to boost your English skills?
Oh, always ready for that.
Today, we're going to take a deep dive into some slang and idioms,
Okay.
but they're all related to having a bit too much fun.
Aw, those are always the best kind.
I know, right?
Yeah.
The source for this deep dive is a YouTube video from Podcast Speak English.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's called English Boost, Level Up Your Skills.
Catchy.
It is.
Yeah.
And it focuses on how to talk about hangovers and parties.
Ah, important stuff for navigating social situations.
Absolutely. And they really get into the nuances,
Okay.
like those little cultural references that can really trip you up,
Yeah, slang and idioms are tricky like that.
because they reflect those deeper cultural values.
Right.
So to kick things off, the video starts with a classic scenario.
Okay.
You wake up, you're feeling less than stellar,
Feeling rough, huh?
yeah, after a night of partying,
Yeah.
and in English we call that a hangover. But what's really interesting is they go into the cultural perceptions of hangovers.
Ah, so not just the word itself.
Yes, specifically in the U.S.
Interesting.
They compare it with European countries.
I see.
For example, in some European countries, like calling in sick due to a hangover is like more socially acceptable.
Ah, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas in the U.S., there's like a stigma attached to that.
Interesting cultural difference.
It is. And they also mentioned the legal drinking age.
Right, that's 21 in the U.S.
Exactly. 21. And
I remember when I first
yeah.
visited the U.S., I
Yeah.
was surprised by that.
yeah. And they connect that to how alcohol is portrayed in the media.
Okay.
Like you can't show someone actually drinking alcohol in a TV commercial in the U.S.
Oh, wow, that's right.
Yeah, it's kind of like this unspoken taboo.
It really shows the complex relationship
Mm.
American society has with alcohol.
It does.
Yeah.
All these regulations and restrictions.
Yeah, you don't really see that in other parts of the world.
Right. So it's not just learning the word.
Yeah.
It's about like understanding the cultural context around it.
Right.
Okay, so let's get into some of the slang.
All right, let's do it.
The video throws our way.
Okay.
One that stuck out to me was Drink Fest,
Drink Fest. Okay.
which is like,
A party.
a gathering
Yeah.
where there's a lot of alcohol consumed.
Okay.
Like Mike's birthday was a total drink fest.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good way to describe that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, and it's interesting how like fest has become a suffix.
That's true.
You can have a food fest, a music fest.
Even a puppy fest,
Exactly, a puppy fest, if you're lucky.
if you're lucky.
Yeah, and it emphasizes just how much of something there is.
It's like a playful exaggeration.
Mm-hmm. And that playfulness is like a key characteristic of slang.
Totally.
People can express themselves
Yeah.
in an informal, humorous way.
It lightens things up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of humor, they actually played a sound effect
Really?
of someone throwing up
Oh my goodness.
when defining the word nauseous.
Wow, immersive.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about immersive language learning.
They don't shy away from the less glamorous side effects.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But it makes it relatable.
That's true. We've all been there.
We have, maybe not to the point of throwing up,
Right.
but,
That feeling.
that regret
Yeah.
after a bit too much fun.
Okay, so Drink Fest and nauseous.
Yeah.
What else did they talk about?
Let's move on to hit up.
Hit up.
Yeah, this one can be a bit tricky.
How so?
It has multiple meanings,
Ah, yeah.
depending on the context.
Right.
In the video, they used it to mean go to or visit a place.
Okay.
Like, we hit up a couple of local bars last night.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it can also mean contact someone.
Oh, right. Like hit me up later.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you have to pay attention to the context
Yeah.
to figure out which meaning is intended.
It's like a puzzle.
It is, kind of.
Yeah,
It's one of the challenges and joys of learning slang,
it is.
figuring out those nuances.
Right. The hidden meanings.
Yeah, and those nuances can make you sound like a native speaker.
Oh, absolutely.
Like instead of I went to a few bars last night,
Yeah.
you can say I hit up a few bars last night.
Much more casual.
Yeah,
Right.
much more fluent.
It's like unlocking a secret code.
It is, kind of.
Yeah.
All right, so while we're on the topic of sounding like a native speaker,
Yeah.
let's talk about Tell Me About It.
Okay. Tell me about it.
This is a classic expression
Definitely.
of agreement
Yeah.
and shared experience.
I've heard that one a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the video, they use it when one guy's complaining about
Okay.
how crazy Mike's birthday parties always are.
Makes sense.
He says, Mike's birthday is always a drink fest.
Right.
And his friend replies, tell me about it.
I can imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like saying, I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
I've been there. I've experienced that.
Right.
And I completely agree with you.
It's a way of bonding
Yeah.
over a shared experience.
It is. It's like building camaraderie, showing empathy.
Like we're in this together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We both know how wild Mike's parties can get. It's like a secret handshake.
It is, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how these seemingly simple phrases
Yeah.
can reveal so much about a culture's
Mm.
attitudes and behaviors.
Mm.
Like the fact that "tell me about it" is so common in English
Right.
suggests that Americans value
Yeah.
shared experiences and empathy.
It's like we're using language
Yeah.
to create a sense of community belonging.
Absolutely.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. It really is a subtle way to connect with someone
It is.
on a personal level.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting how
Yeah.
these simple phrases can reveal so much about a culture.
Like their attitudes and behaviors.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, the fact that "tell me about it"
Right.
is so common
Mm-hmm.
suggests that Americans value those shared experiences
Right.
and empathy.
Yeah, like we're using language to create that sense of community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that sense of belonging.
It's powerful stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
And speaking of cultural insights,
Sure.
let's go back to the differences in drinking norms
Yep.
between the U.S. and other countries.
Right.
The video touched upon
Mm-hmm.
how drinking in public is generally frowned upon in the U.S.,
Yeah.
whereas in some European countries,
Yeah.
it's totally acceptable.
I've definitely noticed that.
Yeah, to enjoy a beer on a park bench or while you're walking down the street.
Yeah, those contrasting social norms often
Yeah.
stem from historical and cultural factors.
That's true.
You know, in some European countries,
Mhm.
drinking has been a part of daily life for centuries.
Right.
And there's a greater emphasis on moderation and responsible consumption.
Whereas in the U.S.,
Yeah.
there's a more puritanical history
Right.
that has really influenced those attitudes toward alcohol.
Yeah, and that puritanical influence
Yeah.
can still be seen in some of the laws
Right.
and regulations surrounding alcohol.
Like the restrictions on advertising and the
Yeah.
legal drinking age of 21.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the point
Yeah.
about how you can't show someone actually drinking alcohol
Right.
in a TV commercial
In the U.S.
in the U.S.
It's like there's this fear that just seeing someone take a sip of beer on TV
Right.
will lead to like widespread chaos
Yeah.
and debauchery.
It's a bit absurd when you think about it.
It is.
Yeah, but it reflects that level of anxiety
Right.
around alcohol consumption.
That you don't necessarily see in other cultures.
Right, and that anxiety can sometimes manifest
Yeah.
in the language we use
Uh-huh.
to talk about drinking.
For example.
Well, the video mentions the phrase, "things got a little out of hand,"
Oh.
to describe a party that became chaotic or uncontrolled.
Oh, yeah. That's a common expression.
It is, isn't it?
Like we're having a good time, but then things got a little out of hand.
Exactly. It's a way of acknowledging that the drinking may have crossed a line
Right.
from enjoyable to problematic.
But even in that acknowledgement,
Yeah.
there's a sense of humor and lightheartedness.
Right. It's not like a serious condemnation of drinking. It's
Right.
more like a playful recognition
Right.
that things can sometimes get a bit wild.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the role of slang
Yeah.
in creating that sense of camaraderie
Hmm.
and shared experience.
When everyone understands the code,
Yeah.
so to speak,
Right.
it can foster that feeling of connection
Yeah.
and belonging.
And that connection can be especially important
Yeah.
when you're navigating
Hmm.
that sometimes tricky world of social gatherings
Right.
and alcohol consumption.
Absolutely. Having a shared language,
Yeah.
even if it's just slang, can help people feel more comfortable
Yeah.
and confident in social situations.
I agree. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground
We have?
in terms of cultural insights
Oh, yeah.
and slang terms.
Mhm.
There's one more phrase from the video
Okay.
that I want to highlight.
What is it?
It's Chick Fest.
Chick Fest.
Yeah, this one's interesting because it reveals how slang can be used to describe
Okay.
specific social groups or demographics.
Like what?
Well, in this case,
Yeah.
it refers to a party
Okay.
or a gathering
Right.
that is predominantly attended by women.
Okay.
And while it might seem like a harmless term
Yeah.
on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to be mindful of the potential connotations and implications
Yeah.
of using such language.
Because some people might find it to be outdated
Right.
or even slightly offensive.
That's true. Language is constantly evolving.
It is.
And what might have been considered acceptable slang a few years ago might now be viewed as insensitive.
Yeah.
or inappropriate.
It's always a good idea to be aware of the potential impact
It is.
of the words we use, especially when it comes to slang.
You know what might seem like a harmless phrase to one person
Yeah,
could be interpreted very differently by another.
exactly. And that's why context is so crucial
Right.
when it comes to understanding and using slang effectively.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The same phrase can have different meanings
Right.
depending on who's saying it,
Yeah.
how it's being said,
Right.
and the overall social setting.
The context is everything.
It really is. Okay, so we've talked about Drink Fest.
Mm.
We talked about Hit Up,
Yeah.
Tell Me About It,
Right.
and Chick Fest.
Are there any other slang terms from the video
Yeah.
that you think are worth discussing?
Well, they did touch upon the phrase,
Oh.
I feel like death,
Oh, yeah.
which is a pretty common way to describe
Okay.
that feeling of having a severe hangover.
Yeah, that's a classic.
It is.
The ultimate expression of hangover misery.
It really is.
And it's interesting how that phrase has
Yeah.
become so universally understood,
Right.
even across different cultures.
Yeah.
It seems like everyone,
Mm.
regardless of their native language,
Yeah.
can relate to that feeling of utter exhaustion and regret after
Yeah.
a night of overindulgence.
I guess some experiences are just so universal
They are.
that they transcend language barriers.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the power of language to
Yeah.
connect us, even when we're talking about something as
Yeah.
unpleasant as a hangover.
You know, one thing that really stands out to me
Yeah.
about this deep dive
Mm-hmm.
is how much we can learn about a culture
Right.
just by examining its slang and idioms.
It's like a window
It is.
into how people think,
Yeah.
behave,
Mm-hmm.
interact with each other.
And I think this particular deep dive
Yeah.
done a great job of illustrating that point.
It-
We've not only learned some new slang terms
Right.
related to drinking and hangovers, but we've also gained valuable insights
Yeah.
into American culture
Right.
and the way it views alcohol consumption.
And hopefully those insights will help our listeners
Yeah.
navigate social situations
Right.
with greater confidence
Mm.
and cultural awareness.
Speaking of cultural awareness,
Okay.
I want to go back to the point they made about
Yeah.
the differences in drinking norms
Right.
between the U.S. and other countries.
Okay.
They mentioned how it's perfectly acceptable
Mm-hmm.
in some European countries
Right.
to enjoy a beer on a park bench
Yeah.
or while walking down the street.
Those contrasting social norms
Yeah.
can often lead to
Mm.
cultural misunderstandings
Yeah.
or even faux pas.
Like imagine a visitor from the U.S.
Right.
trying to enjoy beer in public
Yeah.
in a country where it's strictly prohibited.
That would be awkward.
It would be. But that's why it's so important to be aware
It is.
of these cultural differences
Mm-hmm.
and to do your research
Right.
before traveling to a new place.
Understanding the local customs and etiquette
Exactly.
can help you avoid any unintended faux pas
Right.
and ensure you have a more enjoyable and respectful
Sure.
travel experience.
And that includes being aware of the slang
Right?
and idioms
Yeah.
that are commonly used in different cultures.
Because what might seem like a harmless phrase
Right.
in one country
Yeah.
could be considered offensive or
Yeah.
inappropriate in another. Language is a powerful tool,
It is.
and it's essential to use it wisely
Mhm.
and respectfully,
Yeah.
especially when we're interacting
Right.
with people from different cultures.
You know, it's funny because when you think about it,
What?
hangovers are a universal experience.
Oh, they are.
No matter what language you speak.
Yeah.
If you've ever had a bit too much to drink,
Right.
you know that feeling of regret
Yeah.
and discomfort the next day.
Indeed, it's one of those shared human experiences
Yeah.
that transcends cultural boundaries.
But what's fascinating is
Yeah.
how different cultures express that experience
Yeah.
through language.
Through language.
The words and phrases we use
Right.
reflect our unique perspectives and attitudes
Exact.
towards alcohol consumption.
And those linguistic variations
Yeah,
can be both entertaining and enlightening.
they are.
Yeah. They provide a glimpse
Yeah.
into the rich tapestry of human culture and the diverse ways in which we make sense
Right.
of the world around us.
You know, this deep dive has really made me appreciate
What?
the complexity
Yeah.
and nuance of language.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It's not just about memorizing vocabulary
Right.
and grammar rules.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding the cultural context,
Absolutely.
the historical influences,
Yes.
and the subtle ways
Mhm.
in which language shapes our perceptions
Right.
and interaction.
Language is a living, breathing entity
It is.
that's constantly evolving and
Yeah.
adapting to the
Yeah.
changing world around us.
And it's up to us to stay curious,
It is?
to keep learning,
Absolutely.
and to embrace those endless possibilities
Yeah.
that language offers.
Well said. So as we wrap up this exploration
Yep.
of drinking-related slang and cultural insights,
Mm-hmm.
let's raise a metaphorical glass
Okay.
to the power of language to connect us,
Mm-hmm.
to entertain us,
Yeah.
and to expand our understanding of the world.
Cheers to that. As we've been talking about all this English slang,
Yeah?
it's made me curious.
Oh, about what?
Well, I was thinking, what are some of the slang terms in your native language
Okay.
that relate to socializing or having a good time?
Right.
Like, what words or phrases do you use
Yeah.
that maybe don't translate directly,
Right.
but capture a certain feeling or experience?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, it really highlights how language reflects those unique
It does.
cultural nuances
Mm-hmm.
of socializing.
Yeah. Even the concept of having a good time
Right.
can vary so much.
It can cross cultures.
So I encourage you, as you're listening,
Mm.
to take a moment to think about the slang terms from your own culture.
Okay.
What stories do they tell about the way you socialize
Mm-hmm.
and experience the world?
Right.
And hey, if you come across any
Yeah.
particularly interesting
Mm-hmm.
or funny slang terms,
Okay.
feel free to share them with us.
Yeah, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, we're always up for expanding our linguistic horizons.
Absolutely.
Well, that just about wraps up our deep dive
It does.
into the world of English, drinking slang,
Right.
and cultural insights.
It was a good one.
We hope you've enjoyed this linguistic adventure
Yeah.
and maybe even picked up a few new phrases
Right.
to impress your English-speaking friends.
Exactly. Remember, language is a journey.
It's not a destination.
So true.
So keep exploring, keep
Yeah.
learning,
Mm-hmm.
and most importantly, keep those conversations flowing.
Cheers to that. Until next time.
Until next time.
Happy language learning.